I really liken it to, I know it sounds callous, but it's like buying a product. We're going out to fill a position, and there's all kinds of different people that we could hire, but we really want to find the best one. So when we're going through this filtering process of getting down, like Katie said, we have 50 or 60 resumes for one position. I don't have time to, frankly, I don't have time to even read all the resumes in full detail. So I'm looking for ways that I can filter that down to a smaller segment, and a smaller segment, and a smaller segment. So you really don't want to do anything that's immediately going to get you kicked out. So for me, in technology, it's very common for people to see like a monster posting, and they just fire off the resume that they have on there. Well, it instantly tells me they put in zero effort. They saw my posting. They didn't bother to write a cover letter. They don't know anything about me. So they're going to get filtered out. If you're going to apply for a IT service position, don't send me a resume that's clearly got an objective for something totally different. Again, it tells me that nobody's put a lot of effort into really thinking through what I need. Because ultimately, I need to basically take care of what my company needs. And again, I'm making that product purchase decision. And it's an expensive product, and if I get it wrong, it's going to cost me a lot of money. So I'm being really careful about, who are these people and which one's going to kind of do the best job. So some general things I'm looking for. People might not think about it, but from a technology perspective, we communicate with our clients constantly. Everybody that works for me communicates constantly. So one of the first things I'm looking for is, can this person clearly communicate? Is the sentence structure accurate? Are there grammatical errors, spelling errors, and things like that? That stuff does matter, because if I hire somebody that clearly can't write a clean cover letter, I can only imagine what kind of communications are going to go to my customers, which is going to be embarrassing for me. It's going to reflect poorly on my company. So, have somebody check it out. Have somebody else read it. I personally was never really good at writing and things like that. So anytime I even send something to a client, I'll often save it, and I'll come back to it an hour later, I'll reread it. And those are just kind of daily interactions. And this is your one opportunity to kind of make some kind of an impression to kind of get in the door. Another big thing is, don't apply for a position you're clearly not qualified for. Particularly in my field, we're very specific on what you need to know to be successful. And I've had a lot of conversations with people. I'm not going to hire you if you're not qualified, not only because it's not going to work out good for me, but you're going to fail. And then, we're going to have a separation, and it's going to be painful for everybody. So that's kind of a big thing for me and I can usually pretty quickly in a resume see if somebody's qualified or not. And if I'm getting a quick feeling that they're not, then, I'm just going to kind of move on. I'm obviously looking for people that are smart. So, if you've got a 3.5 or 3.9 or 4.0, I want to know. I want to know that, you've got that attention to detail and that you're ambitious and things like that. And, motivation's a big thing too. Our industry isn't one where you can learn a skill set and run with that for 10, 20 years. You can't even run with it for 5 years. We're in a constant evolutionary process where there's new product, new technologies. Things are kind of changing dramatically in the course of 2 years. So anybody that's really going to be successful in my industry really has to be motivated. They've got to love what they do, because they're going to have to spend a lot of time making sure that they're doing training, learning things like that. So if somebody's kind of just wants to go to work every day and come home, usually that's not going to work out very good in my industry. So some specific things on cover letters. Shooting a quick email like, hey, I saw your posting, I'd like to apply, here's my resume. That's not a cover letter. It's not going to fly. So actually, write a real one. And again, like they discussed, tell me why you want to work for my company. I've got a lot of people I can talk to, and like we were discussing, I want somebody that's going to be around for a while too. I want somebody that hopefully I can build, because I'm going to invest a lot in that person. I'm hoping they're going to be with me 3, 5, 10 years. So tell me why you want to work for me, and what you're going to do for me. Another pet peeve I have, this happens all the time, I'll get applications from people that are out of state. And they probably want to move here for some reason, but they don't tell me. And I've gotten burned enough times where I've gotten through an interview process, extended an offer to somebody, and they've accepted it, and then 2 weeks later they decide, I changed my mind. I really don't want to move to Traverse City. So after being burned so many times, when I get those, if somebody's applying from California or Ohio or Indiana, I'm tempted not to even want to call them back, because I don't want to waste my time. So, and then there's been other ones that have applied and they've said, hey, I grew up in the area, I've got family in the area, I'm interested in moving back. Well, that kind of takes care of that concern for me, and I'm going to actually go ahead and talk to those people. Another big one for me is, how are you going to add value to my company? If you've done some things in your previous experience that you think you can bring to my company and add value in some way, shape, or another, I'd like to know about that to help you kind of, again, stand out from everybody else I'm talking to. Some things in a resume, I'm really not really big on structure and format. Obviously, I want to be able to get through it clean. If you've got some cool, crazy graphics on there, it really doesn't do anything for me. It's more of a distraction, so it just needs to be easy to read. But, I'm looking for kind of achievement. So, if you were to list out and say, I worked at Best Buy from 2007 to 2009, and you don't tell me what you did there, that's really not helping anybody. I'd rather see that, I was running the customer service department, and we reduced the number of complaints by whatever percent by doing something that I came up with. Those kind of examples go a long ways, and again, it shows me motivation, ambition, and somebody that's going to try to add value. Make sure the dates are accurate. If the dates, if there's overlapping dates and positions, it can be kind of confusing. It makes me wonder if it's an error. Sometimes you actually maybe work 2 positions, so it might be something to put in somewhere in either the cover letter or the resume. Mention volunteering. If you're doing things outside of work, maybe for your church or community organization, that again, it just shows ambition. This is somebody that's ambitious. They're trying to better themselves, better their community. They're probably going to be more likely to add value. Some things I find funny. I'm a hard worker. I don't get sick a lot. I'm a team player. Well, so is everybody else. so it really, if you're going to say that, give a specific example. If you were a team player, and let's say you put together a potluck lunch every once a month and you organize that, well, put that in there. If it's that important to you that you really think you're just a super team player, then give me an example so that I actually know that, okay, they're more of a team player than your average person would tend to be. In the tech industry, I get a lot of resumes that have like a series of acronyms, and I was going to actually read off this one that I got. The guy wrote in his resume: IPv6, IP subnetting, VLAN, VPN, WAN, T1, DS3, DSL, OC3, wireless point-to-point. This goes on for 2 minutes. I look at that and I say, well, I really doubt they know how to do all these things if they're super proficient. So, if you're going to list skill sets, try to keep it to a specific number. And again, it'd be helpful if you kind of tailor that to the position. In my postings, we're specifically saying what we're looking for in skill sets. So tell me about those things. Don't tell me about stuff that either I'm not going to believe or isn't really relevant to the position. So. We talked about the length too. I'm totally fine with a 2 and 3 page resume. 1 page, in my industry, I don't know how you can tell me everything that you know how to do in 1 page. So 2 and 3 is fine. I would say though, try to list the most important stuff first. Because again, if I've got 60 of them, I'm probably not going to read all 3 pages of it. I'm going to look for some things in the beginning that catch my interest. And if you caught my interest, I'm going to read the rest of it. But if you didn't, then nobody's going to read page 2 and 3. For your contacts and things, don't list your work. If you're currently employed, don't list your work address and phone number. You'd be surprised how often people do that. And what it tells me is if you're working for me and at some point you're unhappy, you're going to start looking for a job on my time, which doesn't sit real well. So, use your personal contacts. Do it outside of work. On education, this has been something that I really think has been happening more over the last year or two. But I very frequently get resumes now that say Ferris State bachelor's degree and whatever. And we'll get through the process and I'll think, maybe I better ask about that. And very often people haven't actually finished that bachelor's degree, that they're a third or half or 2/3 of the way into the program. And so now I've gotten an interview process and I thought, boy, I don't trust this person anymore. So I'm going to kick them out of my interview process. So it would be better for me to know up front that I'm currently enrolled. I'm expected to graduate in 2016. Great. Now we're kind of all on the same page and I don't have to worry about, not trusting other things that you've told me. So I've got some kind of advice too. For, again, my industry, if you've been sitting on the sidelines for 5 years, you're starting over. And it really changes very, very rapidly. So, like your example, if you've taken some time off to do some family stuff and you were in my industry, I would want to know that you've been reading trade magazines, that maybe you've got some stuff at home that you're playing with that's related to the field, you're reading some stuff online, somehow you're staying engaged with the industry to stay current on trends. That type of information I think is going to help you a lot, particularly if you've been out of the labor market for a period of time. And then just kind of some general notes on kind of how to get noticed. Once in a while someone actually comes to my office and drops off a portfolio, and I'm like, wow, somebody came to my office and dropped off a portfolio. They may not be qualified, but I'm going to look at it. I'm going to go through it, and I'm actually probably going to call them back regardless, just to say, thanks for dropping that by. It showed some ambition. Appreciate it, and either we should talk or we can't, but I appreciate it. And don't be afraid to follow up. If you've submitted a resume, you haven't heard anything in 3 or 4 weeks, if you were to try to contact me or contact the address that was on the listing, nobody's going to get upset about that. Again, it shows that, hey, they were serious. They actually want to work here. They've got some motivation, so that stuff kind of goes a long ways. Other than that, I had a couple things on kind of interview tips. I know it's kind of out of the scope a little bit, but, dress professionally. Suit and a tie is an okay thing to do. I think some people think they're going to come overdressed, but I really don't think you can come overdressed for an interview. Bring something to write with. Drives me crazy when people come empty-handed and they sit down. No pen, no paper, no copy of anything. So, it tells me they're not prepared. Bring some questions. Hey, I was on your website. I saw you were doing this. I was just wondering, how's that going? Or how would that fit into this position? So, shows me there's, some interest. And so that sort of stuff can kind of go in a cover letter too. So, and kind of a funny thing, watch your language. I've had 3 interviews this year where people thought it was perfectly fine to curse the entire time. It's like, wow, we're done. Thanks for coming in. So, just be professional through the entire course, all the way from the beginning, all the way to the end. Because again, we're looking for reasons to, we're concerned that we're going to buy a bad product. So don't give us a reason to think that, there's some kind of risk associated with you, that, you're going to somehow not be good for the company.